OMG, ladies and gentlemen, we have an absolute bombshell breaking story of two NFL coaches claiming they were paid and incentivized to lose football games to gain better draft position. First, Brian Flores in his lawsuit. You can see Chris Mortensen saying the NFL will investigate the specific allegations that Brian Flores has made concerning Dolphins owner Stephen Ross offering him around $100,000 per loss incentives in 2019 to gain a better draft position. A league source said Stephen Ross late last night coming out emphatically denying those allegations. Also, we saw yesterday after the Brian Flores lawsuit was made public, Hugh Jackson also come out and say that he was paid to lose games. We remember Hugh Jackson, the head coach of the Browns, finished with a 3-33 record, and the Browns, both years he was the head coach, towards the end of the season would have been good for them to lose games to gain that number one overall pick. They got back-to-back number one picks, drafting Myles Garrett and Baker Mayfield. Now, a lot to unpack with this, a lot with the whole tanking thing. If this is true, if Brian Flores can prove this about Stephen Ross, he's going to have to sell the team. It's just point blank period. Stephen Ross will have to sell the team if this is true. I don't know when it comes to penalizing a team for draft picks, what happens there. But the whole idea of tanking is a legit strategy. And the reason I say that, like, you see all these people on ESPN saying, oh, it's terrible, you shouldn't tank. Like, tell that to the Cincinnati Bengals, who went 2-14 2 years ago, got the number one pick, and then got Joe Burrow. But if they would have won 4 or 5 games and ended up with the 5th or 6th pick and gotten Tua, I don't think they'd be in the Super Bowl right now. It is ironic that Stephen Ross was incentivizing Brian Flores to get the number one overall pick or to lose as many games as possible. The year Joe Burrow went number one overall, Brian Flores ended up winning some games. I'm not saying it's his fault. If you're the head coach, you're trying to win football games, right? Really, the whole idea of tanking should be an ownership thing and a GM thing. If those two guys are on the same page towards the end of the season, you can rest players. You can say someone's out with a lat strain. That's what I thought the Detroit Lions did this past year with Jared Goff towards the end of the season. They were completely out of it. There's no reason to win games. You want to get as best draft position as you possibly can. So the whole idea, people are coming at tanking. Tanking is a legit strategy to get high-end talent. In the NBA, people say, oh, the lottery stops it. The lottery doesn't do anything. The lottery is the most ridiculous thing in the NBA right now when it comes to drafting. They should remove the lottery. If you have the worst record in the NBA or in the NFL, you should get the number one pick. That's just the bottom line. Tanking is a legit strategy. If you're not very good, you tank to get the number one overall pick so you get high-end talent so you can become good. It's a very simple strategy, but obviously the idea of bribing and incentivizing a head coach to lose games on purpose is a terrible look that the NFL is not going to like, and they will come down very hard on these owners. We'll also have to see if any other head coaches come out against this. The other thing that I was really confused by, you would think these billion-dollar owners would make the head coaches sign some disclosure form or something to make sure that these conversations or make sure these, sort of bribes are staying private. Wouldn't you think that? Maybe they made them sign it and Hugh Jackson and Brian Flores broke the agreements. I don't know, but you would think if you're an owner, there is the chance that, the head coach gets fired, gets angry, and then says, oh, this dude bribed me to lose games. You'd think you'd make them sign something in writing to say, these conversations we're having where I'm bribing you to lose, these things need to stay quiet. Or else you're not going to have them at all, because a situation like this can happen where a coach gets fired, he gets pissed, he's like, hey, my record's really bad, but I was paid to lose games. Right, I was paid to lose games. The idea of losing games at the end of the season when you're not in playoff contention is a smart one, especially if you're going for the number one overall pick. Again, just ask the Cincinnati Bengals, do you think they would have wanted to win 3 or 4 games back in 2019 when they got Joe Burrow? I don't think so. I don't think they'd be in the Super Bowl right now. That's the idea of tanking. It happened with the Browns back in 2017, 2018. They got Myles Garrett, number one overall pick, consensus number one overall player. easy pick franchise pass rusher. Then they got Baker Mayfield, who, when healthy, has proven to be around a top 12 quarterback. They've kind of turned their franchise around, got a playoff win last year on the road against the Steelers. So tanking has proven to work. And then you take a look at the examples like the Indiana Pacers, who will categorically refuse to tank of the NBA. They keep ending up with these late lottery picks, their first round exits in the playoffs. They have absolutely no direction as a franchise. Their fans are completely demoralized. Then you take a look at a team like the Memphis Grizzlies, who got the number 2 overall pick and completely turned around their franchise, picking Ja Morant. I'm not trying to compare the NBA to the NFL, but I'm just saying, having that high-end top pick, the idea of tanking is a legitimate one, but you can't be paying these coaches, bribing the coaches to lose games. This should be an ownership GM type decision where you either rest players, you trade guys, you do something to make sure you have the best chance to get the number 1 overall pick. The NFL will be very angry. We know they'll do their internal investigation on all of these allegations that Brian Flores, and I wonder if they're going to investigate the Hugh Jackson stuff as well. We'll see if any other head coaches come forward. Again, I'm shocked these billion-dollar owners didn't make these head coaches sign some disclosure form, form to keep these conversations where you're bribing guys to lose games private. But so far, just Hugh Jackson and Brian Flores coming out saying they were paid to lose. And the irony is Brian Flores saying Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, paid me to lose games in 2019 when Joe Burrow was picked first overall. If Brian Flores would have went 2-14, maybe they get Joe Burrow, maybe something different happens. They end up with Tua. It's just funny to think about. And again, this is completely against the policy. You shouldn't be paying head coaches, but don't go at the idea of tanking and losing games to better your franchise. Instead of being 8-8 all year, maybe go 1-15, and then the next year, because you have a franchise quarterback, you can build on something and work up to making the playoffs. You can get your Joe Burrow, you can get your Andrew Luck, you can get your Myles Garrett with that number 1 overall pick, that top-end talent. Not always does it have to happen. We understand Lamar Jackson, 32nd overall pick. Josh Allen, I believe, was picked around 6th overall, so you don't need the number 1 overall pick every time, but it makes it a lot easier and it gives you way more options. It's the smarter thing to do as a franchise. These are separate things, though, with the whole paying. We'll have to see if any of this is proven true. Brian Flores seems very confident in his lawsuit, so we'll have to see if he provides evidence behind these claims that he was incentivized. This really, it doesn't surprise me. The thing that surprises me is that these guys are allowed to talk freely about this without some sort of disclosure without some sort of breach in a contract that you'd think the owners would make them sign. Again, because you'd think the owner at some point, you might have to fire this guy. He gets pissed. He's like, wait a minute, you're firing me? You told me to lose games. So, but the whole idea of it doesn't surprise me at all. Losing games towards the end of the season when you're already out of it, the wins are basically meaningless. You want better draft position so you can potentially get a franchise quarterback. That's the position the Dolphins were in 2019. They ended up with the 5th overall pick and got Tua. So guys, we'll have to see what happens with all of this. This is crazy news. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.